This conference will now be recorded.
Hey everybody, this is Dr. Doug Smith. It is 2:30 on a Wednesday, so it is time for our Monday through Thursday 2:30 podcast. This is the podcast where you hear the science about what actually happened to you and to others during this opioid crisis. And that's what we do here. We cover the science. Okay, and that's what we're doing right now. You can look at the screen in front of you. And for those of you who've been listening for a while, you know I'm going through the process of writing the book. I'm enjoying the process. I feel good about the book. I feel like the book can go a long way towards educating the country of what really happened and helping us raise the money to file the first mass tort lawsuits, because that's what we got to do. Anything else is a waste of time. We got to file these lawsuits. Anything else is a waste of time. They will suppress us and suppress us and suppress us, as they have. We gave them a chance, and they used that chance really to laugh at us. So we will get the lawsuits filed. But on the screen in front of you, as I'm going through and writing the book, I'm going through a whole bunch of older graphics from 5-6 years ago, and this is one that I came across. And what we're trying to show here is what actually happens with the genetic damage. Okay, the type of genetic damage that the opioids do is called methylation. Okay, METHY. Okay, in fact, you see right there it says methylated DNA. Okay, so if you really want to do your homework and double check on this, just go to Google and put in opioids methylated DNA, and you'll see there are plenty of very well done scientific studies linking opioids to methylated DNA. Okay, and that's what we're trying to show on this graphic right here in front of you. Okay, there on top, that's normal DNA. That's what your DNA looked like before you start taking the opioids. And then when you start taking the opioids, you pick up these methyl groups, a carbon and 3 hydrogens, and that's what the C and the 3 H's. Okay, and it sticks to your DNA, and it sticks to your DNA in very specific sites. Okay, science loves terms, and science loves names, and those very specific sites are called CPG sites. That's where the methylation occurs. It doesn't really occur anywhere else, just on those CPG sites. You get a bunch of CPG sites together, and they're called CPG islands, and they're little off and on switches. That's what they are. It's little off and on switches. And that's what we're trying to show there in this graphic. You see the top is normal DNA, and you see in the middle, the methylation's been added. And then you see on the bottom, the area under the methylation has been silenced. Okay, it's been turned off. That's what methylation does. That's what that methyl group does. It's an off switch. It turns off part of the DNA. So you go in there and you start methylating a whole bunch of DNA, and you're eventually going to turn off something important. Okay, you go to the circuit breaker in your house and start turning off switches, you're eventually going to turn off something important. Same concept. Okay, and you turn off something important and you're going to have consequences. And that's what we're saying here. Okay, unfortunately for everybody involved, the area of the DNA that is methylated by the opioids is very old, very ancient, 450 million years old. Okay, the area of the DNA is well, the name of the gene is the OPRM1 gene, and this OPRM1 gene is about as old as the hinged jaw. Okay, so think of all the animals you can think of. Okay, how many have a jaw that will open and close? Pretty much about all of them. Okay, you got to go through a pretty long list before you start thinking of animals that don't have a hinged jaw. You're down to, snails, slugs, earthworms, jellyfish, things that don't have a hinged jaw. Okay, so things like the hinged jaw and the OPRM1 gene, these are 450 million years old. Now that's significant because life probably didn't crawl out of the ocean until after that. Okay, 380 million years ago. Okay, so you're talking about stuff older than life on land on this planet. Okay, that is old, that is ancient. You start mucking around with old and ancient DNA, and you start turning stuff off. Turn this off, turn that off, turn this off. You're talking about DNA that's fundamental to life. It doesn't take long to turn off something important, and that's what happened. That's what happened to you. Something important in your DNA got turned off. Something important in your DNA got turned off. More specifically, something important in the OPRM1, stands for opioid mu receptor 1. OPRM1 gene got turned off, which means that something's missing in your opioid receptor. That's the whole thing. It's not a normal opioid receptor anymore. Something's missing. Okay, it's a couple of French fries short of a Happy Meal. Okay, something important in the DNA got turned off, and a piece that was supposed to go onto the opioid receptor, it isn't there. So the opioid receptor doesn't work normally. Okay, it works better when you take an opioid. You take fentanyl, you take heroin, you take pills, and you saw for yourself it worked better. Not completely normal, but a whole lot better. But when you try to take no opioid, when you attempt opioid abstinence, that sickness comes on, and you can't stand that sickness. You'll do anything to get out of that sickness. You'll buy whatever's available. Do whatever you got to do to buy something to get out of that sickness. Okay. Why were the symptoms so severe? Because you're messing around with old ancient DNA. You're messing around with the fundamentals of life. We got a little bit better idea. We understand that as life became more complex, the body took over maintaining the organs and organ systems. And the opioid receptors, yes, it was fairly new, bright, shiny receptor in the nervous system, and looks like it was given the task of overseeing the homeostasis and normal activities of the organs. So when you mess up the opioid receptor, what you're really doing is messing up the homeostasis, the normal care, the daily function of the organs, and you felt it yourself. Start pouring sweat, hair stood on end. As you lose, you lost control of your sweat glands, lost control of your hair follicles, lost control of the mucosal glands of your eyes and started tearing, lost control of the mucosal glands of your nose, and your nose started running, lost control of your heart rate, you felt that, lost control of your bowels, you felt that. What you didn't feel is that you'd also lost control of your adrenal gland. And that's what killed 4 million people. And it's from the genetic damage. You're looking at it right there. You're looking at our rendering of it, our interpretation of it, something we could draw simply. So you get to have something to look at right there on the screen. So we'll hold here for today. We'll pick up here tomorrow. Don't forget to like and subscribe us. Don't forget to post this podcast on your social media, everybody else's social media. Let's get the word out there. I'm going to go back to work on the book. I've almost finished chapter 7. I am so excited that I'll hopefully finish chapter 7 over the weekend. Chapter 7 has been a slow write. 8 and 9 should be fairly quick chapters to be able to write, and then the book's done. Goes through the editing process, got to get the bibliography done, got to get the graphics in there. A lot of work left to do, but the writing part is done. Now comes the editing part. So everybody have a great day. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Alex, as always, thank you for everything, and bye-bye.